It's the big facelift on the Maruti Suzuki S-Cross. We have the car's first review. As promised, it's also the detailed review of the Renault Captur and the Nissan Leaf is out in its second generation. C&B was at the debut. It's time to Car and Bike on the NDTV network. I am Siddharth Vinayak Patankar, and as you've seen, we've got a lot packed into today's show. It's a lot of new metal that is coming your way. Now, we teased it to you last week, that is the Renault Captur, so there is that review coming up. But we'll start off with the new S-Cross. And when I say new, it is a facelift, but it's a significant one. It's one that we've showed you from the global auto shows already, so you kind of know what to expect. And it's come in quick time because India got the car late to begin with 2 years ago. So Cyrus has spent some time with it, and these are all the details.
It's been just over 2 years since Maruti Suzuki first launched the S-Cross in India. Although it never really set any sales charts ablaze, the S-Cross was always a very capable car, which gave it its own set of fans. But as with every other product that needs to stay fresh and relevant, it desperately needed a major refresh. And now the automaker has finally given it one, and Maruti Suzuki has gone full-on SUV with the styling. Now, when Maruti Suzuki does a facelift on one of its cars, you expect it to have a slightly different bumper, slightly new grille, slightly new set of wheels, but it is never really comprehensive. The S-Cross facelift, though, is a comprehensive job. In fact, it is one of the biggest facelifts that I have ever seen Maruti do in a long time. Now, one of the big complaints that a lot of customers had in the past with the S-Cross was the fact that it just didn't look exciting enough. This one does. It looks a lot more in your face, a lot more aggressive, exactly the kind of look this segment needs. The big difference, the new grille, the new front end. You get this 10-slat vertical chrome festoon grille with a lot of chrome on the top, a lot of chrome on the bottom, a good use of chrome in fact on the car. And you get the new headlamps. Now, the outline might be similar to the older car, but they are a slightly larger set and you do get a lot more tech. In particular, you get LED projector headlamps inside, and you get a set of LED DRLs which are much brighter and much more sort of bedazzled, if you can use that term. You also get a slightly different front bumper which has a very SUV styled skid plate on the bottom, and that as a whole, as a combination, gives the S-Cross a much more aggressive front end, and that's exactly what the car really needed. You also get a new bonnet that has just the rightly placed bulges and a new set of diamond cut two-tone 16-inch alloy wheels. Overall though, the S-Cross certainly looks a lot more mature and grown up. Now, just like with the exterior, the interior of the new S-Cross has gone through a major sort of nip and tuck as well. The design seems very familiar. You've got the gloss black and the silver brushed finish, which you find in a lot of other Maruti Suzuki cars, but the quality of the materials and the fit and finish of everything is much better, and it feels like a much more premium product. It feels like an expensive car because you now get a soft touch dashboard that gives it the almost leather-like feel, and the same sort of high quality leather extends to the seats as well. Of course, the interior is all black, which is great for this kind of car. And you also get this very familiar infotainment system that we've now been used to across the Maruti Suzuki model range. And yes, it does offer all the connectivity options like Apple CarPlay, like Android Auto, built-in navigation and the likes. Just like the front seats, the rear seats too are well crafted. And they recline slightly, which gives them a more laid-back seating position. But there are no AC vents in the back, and that is a big missed out feature in this day and age, and in this segment, especially considering Indian climatic conditions. Other features include the start-stop button with keyless entry, cruise control and rain sensing wipers. Now, if you as a buyer were looking to buy the S-Cross after the facelift, there are of course all those positives that we've talked about, the more imposing exterior, the better interior, the better tactile feel, better quality of materials, etc. There are of course some downsides to the new facelift. To begin with, no 1.6 litre DDIS anymore. The DDIS 320, as it was known, has been discontinued, as honestly the demand wasn't that high. So you only get the 1.3 litre DDIS 200 engine now with the S-Cross, which is, well, the engine that really moves Indian cars. It's one of the most popular engines in the country. It's tried and tested, and it still makes 200 Newton meters, as the name suggests, of torque, and makes 89 bhp, which means it is not the lower performance version of the engine. It's the slightly better, slightly more refined, slightly more powerful version of the 1.3. Now it still also gets the 5-speed manual gearbox, and Maruti says that AMTs aren't really on the cards for the S-Cross because, well, they feel this segment doesn't really want one. Now we disagree. We think the AMT gearbox in the S-Cross would have been the absolute perfect match, because this segment of audience, this segment of buyer, is really looking for something easier to drive, considering the fact the car is already a little big to begin with. The addition of the SHVS mild hybrid system has made the S-Cross more fuel efficient, with a fuel economy figure of just over 25 km per litre as compared to 23.65 that it had earlier. And at the same time, it reduces carbon emissions by about 10%. And lower carbon emissions are always a welcome change. The S-Cross gets those new 16-inch alloy wheels that we spoke about earlier, but it also gets a larger set of tyres. The 215/60 R16 are essentially the same that the Brezza gets, and handling has improved a little bit, although there is still a tad bit of understeer as expected. The ride quality, on the other hand, is just perfect for our roads, with the adequate level of bump soaking abilities without being too stiff. The S-Cross does get disc brakes all around and ABS as standard on all variants, but it also gets brake energy regeneration, and the feedback from the brake pedal does take some time getting used to. Stopping capabilities though are great. Other safety features include 2 front airbags as standard on all variants and ISOFIX child seat mounts as standard on the rear seat too. Our verdict on the S-Cross facelift is pretty much straightforward. The car is more mature looking now, and what has really impressed us is the quality of the interior. That said, it would have been better with a little more power and a bit more refinement. And to add, as a final footnote, we will say this again, the car looks much better in the flesh, or in the metal in this case, than it looks in pictures and the video.
So that is the new facelifted S-Cross. You can react to it. And the other car that you've been reacting to all week is the new Renault Captur. Now we showed you glimpses of the car and a little bit of an introduction on the program last week. It is of course time to take the deep dive with the full review. The much awaited Renault Captur is here. The launch later this month will give us prices, but today we'll tell you all about its features and performance. It is available in 1.5 litre diesel with a 6-speed manual gearbox, while the 1.5 petrol comes with a 5-speed. There is no automatic on either, sadly. It's modern, urban, very contemporary. It's good looking, this car, and it certainly gives you Lawrence Vandenecker's typical Renault family styling. Big bold grille, big bold logo, and very different use of materials, not your typical grille, and lots of customization options. Now, personalization has become the buzzword in our industry. There's an app for this car. You can go sort of mix and match different options. Lots of chrome inserts and additions that you can do. There are decals, there are roof wraps, and of course, two-tone means that you can also play around with different kinds. So you have grey or black on the roof, and the colors are also an interesting palette. So lots that you can do to make the car look fairly different. But the styling itself, coming back to it, like I said, it's contemporary, and because it has this sort of softer look up front and it's not your butch SUV, It makes the car overall look a little compact and tiny, but it's not. It's a nice ample sized car, but in a way that's a good thing, because in the urban context, you kind of want something that's compact and easy to park, easy to drive, easy to maneuver. It gives you that. It also gives you this massive ground clearance. 210 mm is the tallest for any Captur in any iteration in any market around the world, and it's 5 millimeters more than the Duster as well. Now this car shares its platform, the B0 platform, with the Duster, and so there are certain commonalities of powertrain, etc. We'll get to it. The other thing that only our market gets, the Platin variant, the very swanky high-end version, lots of LED lighting, and just, I think, trying to instantly give you this sense of premiumness, which is a big switch for Renault. At the back too, the taillights have been finished nicely, and overall the car looks really, really nice and attractive. Something I think that those who are younger by age or younger at heart are certainly going to appreciate. Unlike the Captur sold in Europe, this is a bigger car, and yes, while it is therefore similar to the Brazilian and Russian one, ours is a lot more upmarket. That will also help Renault to keep a distinct differentiation between the Duster and this car. The Captur Platin spec gets LED headlights, and the roof is a contrast two-tone finish. It also has LED daytime running lights, floating front indicators, black cladding, 17-inch alloys, ripple effect tail lights, and standard safety features that include dual airbags, ABS and EBD, and ISOFIX child seat restraints as well. The central console and AC vents are finished with a gold and white bezel in the top spec. The console houses a touchscreen with audio and navigation, much like the ones that we've seen in the Duster, Logi, and even the Kwid. The interface is also similar, but there's no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. Renault India says it's working on bringing those to its cars soon. The car syncs your phone via Bluetooth anyway though, and for music alone, the USB plug-in will do just fine. The steering has controls for the phone, etc. But for audio, you have to access the stack behind the steering, like in the Duster and previous Renaults. It works fine, but takes some getting used to. So it's good on features, it's really premium, and it exudes that, which is a great differentiator from the Duster and from the rest of the segment, and it's something that buyers, especially younger buyers, will really appreciate. It's a nice palette, but I know you all want to know if there's enough room in the back. Let's go find out. Now, it's not like this car will surprise you with some miraculous amount of space at the back. It is a compact SUV, but it doesn't disappoint. You've got a good amount of knee room, but crossing your legs, a little bit of a challenge, but you can manage. The seat's comfortable though. It's nicely contoured. It's also well finished on the top end, Platin. LED lighting for the interior lights, and a drop-down armrest that's nice and chunky. Dual cup holders in there, and rear AC vent. You've also got a charging spot back here, so you can plug in your laptop and keep it going. And that's again something that a lot of people will appreciate. No USB points, but still the charger helps. Boot space is 392 liters. With the second row folded down, that expands to 1352 liters. I am only testing the diesel today. The K9K block is all too familiar, and by that, I mean literally so. First impression when you start driving this car, it is very similar to the Duster in all the good ways. So you can say that it's sort of the Duster with a little creamy layer on top, and that's a good thing, because remember, the Duster, the reason why it really did well was not just because of its price equation, but also because it had this really great ride quality, good drivability for Indian conditions, and the Captur will not disappoint on that front as well. Now, I have to say that I've only driven the diesel, so I can assume that the petrol has similar attributes, but ride quality will shine through. We've had some pretty rough patches of road that we've gone over today, some rocky bits as well, and the car's done pretty well in terms of just how it behaves and how comfortable it remains. So people are going to like that. The engine has lag at the lower end, and once you get it past 2000 RPM, it goes like a rocket. Now the great thing about this K9K engine, It's well proven in Indian conditions and it's nice and torquey. The mid-range especially is just so satisfying. You get a very slight hint of lag at the start at very lower RPMs and lower gears, but after that it's really smooth and it pulls along beautifully as well. Take a look at the specs. The 6-speed is a good choice as it channels the peak torque through to the wheels well. Peak torque kicks in under 1800 RPM and so you get good city traffic maneuverability too. The engine's roar filters through to the cabin, but it's not disturbing or annoying. The petrol has familiar specs too, and yes, you must have guessed the drivetrains are identical to the Dusters. And yes, as you must have guessed, the drivetrains are identical to the Dusters. Handling is surprisingly good, I have to say. I say surprisingly because I was worried about it before I began my drive. Now bumps like that in the road, no problem. You've got all of it covered because of this tremendous amount of ground clearance that this car has. But you know what? When they went on about that in the presentation, I was a little bit worried because jacking it up that high, 210 millimeters, the highest Captur anywhere in terms of ground clearance, well, you know, I was worried it would affect handling really adversely. The good news is the car isn't very sporty, but it doesn't affect that handling. So it holds an intended line and the steering is properly stiff with decent feedback. The ride quality is also sorted and the suspension setup is indeed like the Dusters. So it's a supple ride with the capability of swallowing up mostly anything. But the Captur does not get all-wheel drive as Renault believes that premium buyer in this space isn't really looking to go off-roading. But that's where things do not add up in my view. Now Renault has been pretty tight-lipped about whether or not there will be an automatic. For the most part the answer looks to be no, and that's a problem because when you talk about going premium, in many of these SUVs, the compacts, like 30% of that portfolio is now becoming automatic. So that means that Renault is sort of wiping itself out of that market and only operating in 70% of that space. And I can tell you what, that percentage for automatics will only go up. Why doesn't the Captur have an automatic? This platform, this drivetrain doesn't have an automatic anywhere in the world, and so which is why the petrol might still get it. But on the diesel, remember, even on the Duster, they had to go AMT, and I'm not sure an AMT would really work on something like this, which is premium. So I reckon we will eventually get the CVT on the petrol side, and I hope that Renault will launch the CVT Captur soon enough. The other bad bit, if you will, is the car's seating position up front. Now the driver's seat is height adjustable, but you know what? It needs to go lower. I'm still sitting too high, I feel. It's great, you get a nice commanding view of the road, but when you're giving me a height adjustable seat, you've got to give me that flexibility. I would like to sit a little bit lower, but it doesn't feel odd. I mean, it's not as if I'm uncomfortable. It's also not as if I don't have enough headroom. I do. And it's at least good that you have the driver's seat being height adjustable, I suppose. The other seat is not the passenger seat, and of course there aren't any electric controls on the seats either. So on the whole, the Captur is a welcome addition to the market. It is stylish, offers some unique characteristics and is unlike any product in many ways. The fact that Renault is going to town with personalization options is also great. Prices will be announced at launch in a few weeks, and Renault says it will be positioned in line with other compact SUVs. The indication I have is that we will get prices in the 12 to 15 lakh rupee price band. I do expect very aggressive pricing, so maybe I will be surprised as well. At those kind of prices though, Creta, beware. And yes, it would compel Maruti to accelerate its plans to bring us the larger European Vitara. Now the Nissan Leaf was the World Car of the Year in 2011, and why not? It was the world's first mass-produced electric car. Now with the second generation, Nissan wants to really take that advantage somewhere because EVs have become the buzzword for most manufacturers. So does the new car hold that advantage? And will India get it? All those answers in this report.
The world is going electric. Well, soon enough anyway. And Nissan has a unique advantage there, since its Leaf was the first mass-produced electric compact when it first came out.
Nissan established itself as a pioneer in the electric vehicle segment with the launch of the Leaf in 2010. Since then, the company has managed to sell more than 3 lakh units globally, leaving behind competition from Chevy Bolt, Toyota Prius and the much younger BMW i3.
The Leaf now has its second generation, as the last car's life cycle came to an end.
In comes the 2018 Nissan Leaf, which takes the model to the next generation. Now, the new Nissan Leaf is based on a completely new design format, gets autonomous driving feature and has the ability to travel much farther than its previous generation.
So the Japanese car maker has turned a new leaf, pardon the pun. It is sportier and is derived from the IDS concept car. You see Nissan's signature V-motion grille, the boomerang light signature and the floating roof, which takes inspiration from other Nissan models. The rear lamps feature a unique signature, easily recognizable from a distance. The low hood blends flawlessly into the windshield and floating roof. Now, like its predecessor, the new Leaf also boasts autonomous features. The first one is the Pro Pilot. At the click of this button, the car will automatically adjust to the speed of the car that's ahead of you in traffic and also what's behind you. It then drives on its own. The second feature is the Pro Pilot Parking Assist, which has the car parking itself. Third is the e-pedal. When activated, you can control the car's drive using just one pedal instead of two. To accelerate, the pedal needs to be pressed down as you normally would. But easing off on it means you want the car to slow down. Lifting off the pedal completely means the car will stop. Nissan says this feature will help make everyday driving as simple as possible. Nissan has increased the power output from the car's 40 kilowatt battery by almost 40% and the torque by 26% over its predecessor. The new Leaf can now travel almost 241 kilometers on a single charge. A full battery recharge takes about 16 hours and half that time using a fast charger. With more and more manufacturers announcing electric car projects, the new Leaf will have its fair share of competition. Nissan does have a good head start and will hope to sell many more Leafs with the second generation. India, however, will have to wait for the Leaf, as the company is in talks with the government to start test runs later this year.
Would I like to see the Nissan Leaf come to India? Of course, but with a car like that, you also need the ecosystem a car like that requires, and I hope that comes here too. Here's hoping. On that note, I'm going to say goodbye. Please do wear your seatbelts, please wear your helmets, and join me next week.